Hey wood people, welcome to Thomas Custom Woodworks, where we create, we build, and we have fun. I was actually really surprised when I first used the Harbor Freight clamps and the Bessey clamps, but for very different reasons. In this video, there will be a winner, kind of. For panel glue-ups, there are two popular choices of clamps, parallel clamps and bar clamps. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. There are so many other types of clamps. You have C-style clamps, F-style clamps, trigger clamps, bandy clamps, and a bunch of others. And although they're all great, they're not great for panel glue-ups. Although I would love to see someone try and do a panel glue-up with some bandy clamps. Okay, we're gonna start with the Harbor Freight pipe clamps. Pros, they're inexpensive, they're light, and they work. Cons, they're not super sturdy, they skip sometimes when you're tightening them, and you have to tighten them a lot to get enough clamping pressure. They can also leave blue paint on your workpiece, which is just kind of annoying, and you have to sand it off when you take it out of clamps. When I was first getting into woodworking and had nothing in my shop, my wife was amazing and was on board with me spending some of our money on the tools that I needed. But I didn't want to push it and spend hundreds and hundreds more on clamps, so these Harbor Freight clamps were a godsend. They allowed me to glue up wide panels for a fraction of the cost of what you could spend on a similar sized clamp. Okay, we're gonna clamp these two cherry boards together. There's a simple way to tell you how many clamps to use and how far apart those clamps should be. Each clamp radiates a cone of pressure that is a 45-degree angle on each side. I have these little pieces of wood to demonstrate the cones of pressure. You just wanna make sure each cone is overlapping on the glue line when you clamp up your piece. Lincoln Street Woodworks has a great video on this, and I'll link that right here. Let's see how these Harbor Freight clamps do. Quick clamping tip. Putting tape on your clamps where your glue line will be will help prevent a lot of messy cleanup. As you can see, I neglect this part quite often. As you saw, I had to tighten these Harbor Freight clamps really tight. And even when I put extra F-style clamps on, I still didn't get glue squeeze out on every part of the joint. With that being said, there's still glue on every part of the seam, and this is gonna hold just fine. I wanna thank the sponsor of today's video, I'll Cut You, Hair Studio. It's time to pretend you care. It's time to visit I'll Cut You. Now back to the video. Now these are the Bessey K-Body Revo parallel clamps. Pros, easy to use, really even clamping pressure. You don't need to tighten them very much, and they're made of really strong material. There's only one con, they're expensive, but you get what you pay for. These clamps are awesome. Okay, so what's the verdict? Who's the winner? If you're on a budget and want to work on panel glue-ups now, the Harbor Freight bar clamps will absolutely get the job done. They'll work just fine. So the Harbor Freight bar clamps win best bang for your buck. If you want to buy the last clamps you'll ever need for panel glue-ups, and you don't mind spending more, the Bessey K-Body Revo parallel clamps are what you should go with. Along with all the pros that I mentioned earlier, the user experience is significantly better than the Harbor Freight clamps. And if something can make it more enjoyable for you to be in your shop, that's worth a lot in my opinion. Overall best clamps, Bessey's the winner. Now the reason those last two boards came together so flawlessly is because I jointed them on the table saw. Click this video right here to see how I did it. And remember, be kind, be awesome.